Welcome to ToV Live. It is Valhalla time.
Woo!
And what are we doing tonight? Oh, we're gonna look at some squads and heroes and probably talking about a couple other things. Hello everybody, welcome to ToV Live, the ToV podcast recording episode 57 tonight. Looking at some more squads and heroes with this wonderful panel of people, and we're gonna get to it actually, right this instant. So let me just give a quick introduction to everybody. We got Nobleman Nick, we've got Mike OEAO, we got Sir Roguescaper, we got Matthias Maccabees, aka Ken, we've got Jeremy, the SLM, and we got first time on the podcast with us, Alex, who is a friend of Nobleman Nick. Welcome, guys, to the stream. How about we get started with this now? Since there's something going on with Heroscapers.com, I am Ryan, aka Tales of Valhalla.
You can use the wiki now, everybody. I'm telling you.
Oh,
yeah, you can use the wiki now.
If I had that prepped,
no longer a
then
wretched hive
probably
of scum and
would.
villainy. It's
there's been work done. There are several individuals out there in the Heroscape community that has been doing incredible work on getting that up to date. So please give a huge shout out to them, of course. And then if you don't mind checking it out, because yeah, I know the Heroscape wiki was bad for a very good bit of time, but I promise you, thanks to Renegade's efforts putting it out there, members of the fans have gone out there and fixed a lot of things. So I can vouch for it now. I'm as admin. I'm still lurking in the background as admin. It's funny. I'm just kind of like watching all the edits go through, and it's nice. It's like, oh my gosh, activity, like. So.
Okay. So. First squad we're getting started with tonight, and this is all kind of new to me. Putting this on the screen, it's not as like good as me just posting the window, but I know that Heroscapers.com is possibly kind of glitchy. Didn't want any kerfuffles happening in that aspect, so we are just going to try and zoom in. I'm going to manage as best as possible because the first squad we're talking about tonight is Death Chasers of Fesk, Valkyrie. And let's just go through the stats really quick. Okay, so we've got a squad of 3, 1 life, move of 5 spaces, range of 1, attack of 4, defense of 2, 55 points. They're orcs, they're common squad, they're hunters, they're wild, and they're medium 5. They got 2 special abilities, 1 taskmaster bonding before taking a turn with the Death Chasers of Fesk. You may first take a turn with any large wild hero you control, and then this one, Orc Battle Rush. At the start of the first round of the game, after all order markers have been placed, you may move all Death Chasers of Fesk you control up to 5 spaces each. Let me repeat that. You may move all Death Chasers of Fesk you control up to 5 spaces each. They must end their Orc Battle Rush movement on an empty space. So that is the stats. We'll get into the character bio in a little bit, but I know like probably a lot of us have a lot of things to say about these guys. I'll just say one thing about them, and then we can go down the line when it comes to this common squad. Death Chasers are, in my opinion, beasts. I got hammered by them last ScapeCon. I was skirmishing with them last Wednesday, and they totally took out a Zelrig within a round. You know how to use them, and the Orc Battle Rush in itself is just it's a supreme advantage just getting that movement across the battlefield before you even start. It's like you start and they're already making their way down. So I mean that's how I have to say about that. How about we go to Nick? Go ahead and go first, and what are your thoughts about these guys?
Yeah, with the Orc Battle Rush, basically your whole army starts 1 turn away from being on height on most battlefields. And not only that, but when you do it, you actually do it after order markers are placed, so you can kind of judge where you want to go based on what you see your opponent's order markers placed on. So that's always really cool, and that just makes them fast and they hit hard with that attack of 4. So I love using them, but if someone really knows how to defend against them, they can be stopped. They're not like super top tier, but they are very good and very fun. And I also like that it got some bonding options. I usually use the Ogre Warhawk, and he has a ton of life. He hits hard. He can hit several people at once, so you can just charge them into groups, and then the other orcs can just scatter across the battlefield and take glyphs and take out whoever they need to take out. So that's what I like about them.
All right, and Ken, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
I was so years ago. I was one of the playtesters for these guys a long time ago. And we had a lot of. We really liked their 4 attack. That's the highest melee. Well, minus the Zute, but they don't bond. So the highest melee highest melee attack minus the Zute, but at least for bonding, the 2 defense is pretty weak. But I mean, you got basically Nirex and Auto included these guys. I wouldn't. It'd be really hard for me to see a time unless it's some sort of weird like format, reverse the whip or something, where I wouldn't want to play Nirak. I think Meeberg Saw is pretty popular with these guys too. I feel like that 100 points is almost an auto included in any game you do with these. And then whether you want to go Pulverizer or Warhulk for a beat stick, if you have enough points, I mean, they both work. I'm pretty excited with whatever his name is now, the new one coming for AOA. He's the guy that does like he has chomp essentially to squad figures. He does an auto wound, I think.
The bear.
Is that what I mean? Who knows what it's going to be when they release him? They changed not Irene's name as well, so I don't know if it'll still be Adelberg, but I think that's gonna. Yeah, I mean, I think that's gonna knock these guys even a higher notch. I think they're already like, they're at the top 4 or 5 melee bonding squads right now
For sure.
And it's not a wide gap because like orcs and heavies heavies and knights are pretty close to each other. Dwarves are pretty close under there, and then you got like Romans and Death Knights, or not Death Knights, Death Chasers, all like right within that. The notch is they don't drop very much, I guess I should say. Like I love, I played as soon as they got released. I won the very first tournament I played with these guys. They're really, really, really good. They hit like trucks. 4 attack is a lot. So, and then, I mean, like I said, if you're throwing the Pulverizer or Warhawk, like you're throwing lots of dice when you're attacking, and it's great.
Absolutely. Ken. Or I mean Mike. See, I'm gonna mess up. Mike, am I gonna see?
Ken, speak again. Everything you just said.
Don't worry about it.
So there's really, from what I've seen, a couple different ways people play them competitively. One is more aggro, which uses first of all, both versions usually use Nirak, because Nirak's defense buff is just too good. It's a bonder, moves around them, makes them 3 defense. It's just so powerful. Ken is describing a more aggressive version, which uses Meebergsa often is in the aggressive version, but even if not, just like the ogres, you just throw a ton of dice, right? Like Pulverizer is 2 attacks of 4, and then you get 3 attacks of 4 with Chasers. You're throwing 20 dice a turn. That's pretty good. That's before height or anything else. Warhulk can be more. He's got 5 attack and he's got the flail, so that's another very aggressive version. The other way people play it, and I know like Veggie plays it this way, is plays it with Raylan, Nirak, and Meebergsa. So all your chasers are 5 defense. Meebergsa's 5 defense. Nirak's 5 defense. The whole army, other than Raylan, is 5 defense. And you just ping people from 6 range with Meebergsa, and you throw like a guy out of aura every turn and just take a 4-die attack with a chaser. It's really turtly. It uses Meebergsa with 5 defense as a way to have a slightly better matchup into armies like 4th Mass and 10th Regiment, who otherwise can give chasers some issues, especially the 10th Regiment. I don't think 4th is quite as bad, just because you get the jump on the battlefield. You can more easily contest like height and stuff, but anyone that's played melee into 10th, even with the fourth attack die, it's just not the easiest matchup, right? Burks is pretty key there, and so Raylan can really help Burks stick around a little longer in those matchups. Burks also gives the army a lot of play into an army like Q9 Rats, because you can paralyze stare a rat, and then if you hit it, the rat does not get to scatter, because it didn't roll defense dice, so they won't get a scatter off that. That's at least been the community ruling for years now. So that is a very nice way to open up gaps and really improve an otherwise pretty rough matchup. It's still hard. You still have to play extremely well, but it becomes more winnable thanks to somebody like Burksa. It's just a very, they're a versatile squad. They just have a bunch of really good options. Even the swag, like throwing the swag in the army, it's not great, but if you have 25 points filler, it bonds, and it'll have 4 defense in Nirax's aura, because it also gets the buff. So sometimes, like, you just, a lot of times you can grab a glyph with the 8 move of the swag in a single move, or you can just tie something up, right? You just throw it in the way, and you don't care that it dies. It's just there to roadblock. It's just there to eat some attacks and stuff. So it just like, and Adelburn, or whatever it's going to be called, is, it's got Chomp, and Chomp is just extremely powerful, and it's got a real attack as well. So talk about another, and unfortunately, I think once that comes out, you're going to be pretty hard pressed to play the ogres. That's the only thing I don't like about that, is that, like, the other version, the tankier version with Raylan, Burksa, just like sit back and ping, is like still going to exist. But then for the aggro version, I think you're just probably going to want to play Chomp, because Chomp is just oppressive. It's very, very good.
All right. Thank you, Mike. And Alex, if you want to give your thoughts about this real quick.
Well, I never personally played them as much, because I never was able to get a hold of them. My friend Nick, normal Nick on here, he does, and we've played a few times, and I can tell you he has played them methodically very well to what you guys are talking about here, and it's just they are pretty dangerous when you play them right. But like you said, they're not like super hard to get around if you just know how to play it right. But
yeah, I think it's important to understand. And it's one of the reasons why I have these now, is to understand how to play them if I ever face them again. Because there's certain things you can do. It's very tough, but there's certain things you can do to counteract them. It's just it's one of those squads that you'd rather not be up against.
Oh, yeah.
To be perfectly honest. But if you are, it's good to know their bonding, their synergies, and see how you can counteract that. Now, I don't want to, like I said, we have other squads and heroes to go to. So Josiah, I don't mean to skip you, but I'm gonna skip you real quick, and we're just gonna get into lore for this, and so we'll talk about that for a second. Jeremy, it says character bio on these wild orcs sweep over the battlefield and keep attacking until their opponent falls. They get the jump on their opponent thanks to their orc battle rush, and enlist the help of a large taskmaster to finish the job. And that is basically the character bio on Heroscapers. Can you tell us anything more about these, Jeremy?
So this was actually really cool when it first came out as a D&D fan. So I promise I won't take all the time. I've condensed it in my brain. I was like practicing in my head as we were listening.
Awesome.
But yeah, so just to reference, Theshk, that's how I pronounce it. Theshk is a region in the Forgotten Realms that's actually not as familiar as people would think, like, Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter or any of those places. Right, the Forgotten Realms, most of the time, everyone likes to call, the Sword Coast the Remembered Realm, and everything else is the Forgotten Realms, because they don't use the rest of the material. But Heroscape used some of the material of Dungeons and Dragons that hasn't been touched as often as Wizards of the Coast would like. They're always dropping the Baldur's Gate stuff, so because it's the most popular thing. So, I don't hate Baldur's Gate. I'm just saying you have a giant planet, use it. You know what I mean? But anyways. So Theshk is essentially their Mongolian region. So they use a lot of references to that. And I'll say that these Death Chasers are probably a hint towards a group that was associated with a group known as the Tungian Horde. So that was my summary. That's all we really have. It's just there was a giant group of orcs that kind of swept down this region. They got taken out, and then remnants of them are pocketed throughout the region. I imagine with them being allied to Valkyrie, they're more on the bad side of things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would just say at least my head canon with the Dungeons and Dragons stuff, I would say this has something to do with that horde. And so I got excited when I saw the name because it's like, oh wow, you're not using just the Sword Coast. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's a review.
And when you say a Mongolian, actually the armor kind of reminds me of something. If someone would say Mongolian as comparison to the armor they have compared to the armor of the other Orkrets that are in Heroscape, it is uniquely different, and so it does give them a little bit more of an identity that way.
Yeah,
that makes me wonder. Cool. Oh, sorry.
No, I was
go
just
ahead,
commenting, but continue.
I was gonna say if they hadn't stopped Heroscape when they did, Wizard of the Coast kept going, I wonder if they would have had more, like, say, kind of Mongolian theme. Would have had some of those kind of orcs on horseback or something similar to that theme.
The option would have been possible. Yeah.
I kind of wonder that now because I study history. I love that stuff, and when you were talking about it, I was like, oh.
Yep. Yeah.
Well,
I like to take notes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Renegade, we have options. But yeah, if you want, the easiest way to compare it is that the Theshk region in Dungeons and Dragons is essentially that Mongolian territory, the steppe, as one would say. And it was the trade routes between them and I would say like the Chinese analog they have in Dungeons and Dragons, which is all the way on the other side of the map. Again, Wizards of the Coast, use your planet. But it's just everyone thinks of Baldur's Gate. And, yeah, but some of the cool stuff that I liked seeing Colby and the others with the design team get out of that bubble Dungeons and Dragons tends to be stuck in, and kind of use some other ideas that was floating around in the universe of Dungeons and Dragons and putting that into Heroscape. That was really cool. So,
all right, and we'll wrap up with this. I will say one thing for anybody who is starting Heroscape and want these in your collection. They cost. I mean, the point value is very low, but the price financially is usually really, really high. And they're worth it. Don't get me wrong; they're worth it to use as an army. But these might be something you might consider, like getting something for like Joey Carmichael or another seller if they have a squad, and get one squad's worth, and then just like get 3D printed and painted. The rest might be a cheaper option to go, and it's great that we have those options out there. There's also Dungeons and Dragons molds of these guys. It's the same mold, same miniature, just sold via D&D, and there's options in eBay and stuff out there like that for that. I've done a lot of that personally.
And if you get the Legends of Drizzt board game, they have a lot of those figures. I think is it that one or is it a different? There's one of the D&D board games has lots of those. Okay. Like 2 or 3 squads worth.
Yeah. So
you have to paint them, but
yeah. So there are ways. Just keep an eye out. So yeah. So that's looking at Death Chasers of Theshk. I mean, very highly valued squad as a common squad. Get a bunch at least. What's the ratio, Ken? A squad of 3. You got to have at least 4 on the battlefield, right? I think that's what you were saying last year. 5. That's the rule, people. Squad of 3, get 5. So I need to get some more. All right. So with that, that's looking at.
I need to go.
That's looking at Death Chasers of. I say Theshk. I know Jeremy, you were saying something different. But that's taking a look at Death Chasers. Definitely a squad you should seriously consider getting into your Heroscape collection. Absolutely. All right, now give me a second, and let's do the next one and see if I can. Okay, yes, we can see. Okay, so we can do Death Knights, and I know Nick and Alex. I don't know how much longer you would be able to have, but I know Nick, are you good for another like 10, 20 minutes? You think?
Yeah, a little after 10 will be good.
Okay. So we'll try to get through this, and then we can have you bow. Alex, are you still good for the time being?
Yeah, I should be good for a while still.
Okay.
I might be. I think I'm good getting close to 11. We'll see how
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. So with that, then we'll start talking about Death Knights of Valkyrie, and I'm going to give my voice a rest. Josiah, would you like to read the stat cards of Death Knights?
I would indeed. All right, so we have the Death Knights of Valkyrie. They have soul weapons. Figures attacked by a Death Knight of Valkyrie subtract 2 from their defense dice. Destructible objects are not affected by soul weapons. They have Unholy Bonding. Before taking a turn with the Death Knights of Valkyrie, you may first take a turn with any small, medium, or large relentless hero you control. They're undead common squads, size 2. They're Death Knights, not Knights. Don't get that mixed up. Tormented, medium 5. Move 5, range 1, attack 2, and a hardy defense of 5. That's 60 points.
That's 60 points. And there's only 2 of them. So what's the ratio then there, Ken, for that, if there's only 2 miniatures per squad?
That's tricky because you only see this with this in the mezzos, and these are only bonding ones, so it's tricky. I want to say at least 6, but they're a little pricey, so it just depends.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I might personally be using these come Escape Con because more than likely I'm gonna have an AOA Raylan with me. I'm gonna have a Levy attack.
Well, yeah. What's interesting about these guys is I think these guys get these out of all the things coming out get the biggest buff, for lack of a better term, with the new stuff, because I think the new Raylan and the new Leviathan really work well with these guys. The funny thing is that, and I'm pretty sure my NDA is way expired, so I can say this, but the original Death Knights, when we were playtesting them for D&D, they actually did -3 defense. So the fact that we brought Raylan back to give them an extra -1 defense that we actually really had them originally in the playtesting at -3, I think is ironic to me. And there's probably 3 other people that know that, but so that's pretty interesting to me. Mike and I released EscapeCon pools, and we have a Death Knight pool with Raylan Leviatech, so we've been play testing those quite a bit for those pools. And I'll tell you what, don't sleep on Raylan. She does a lot of she doesn't look quite as good from just from the outside, but when you're playing her with the Death Knights, and even her 6 life 3 defense in double space, people can put waste a lot of attack to her, and then at the same time, you're doing lots of other things with the other squad figures while they're trying to do that. And what's cool is I think it was Big a Bullfrog that suggested, or maybe it was Super Frog. I get the frogs mixed up, but we have her in the Wandering Monster tournament for the old man. So she can give -1 defense to every figure on the board because everybody's not going to be on her team, unless So that's going to be pretty exciting. So, but now I'm sounding like we're talking about Raylan more than I am the Death Knights. But anyway,
and this only I think applies to you and me as far as the old man.
But I don't think the Death Knights are very good. I wish they were better. I think they are going to get a little bit better. I don't think it's better enough to make them a high tier pick. The best I've ever done in a tournament with these guys is 5-1 one year at Treetown, but I've just never quite been able to get over the hump with these guys. But they're not bad, but they're not good either. So Mike probably has them around a B, would be my guess in his rankings, because I think his rankings are a little high. I'd put him more like a B-, but
here, let me take a look real quick. Do I have?
I have them at a B-. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you got them at a B-. Yeah, and I think they're all B- B-s here. Yeah, from folks there.
Yeah, I keep on losing to that army with Death Knights and Rayland. It's just you're just not really in defense if you're kind of going more for kind of a melee oriented lower defense army. I think it was running Warriors of Ashra or something against them, and I wasn't even rolling any defense against them, and I was sure you could just wipe the board with these guys on me.
I plan to skirmish these Death Knights, Raylan, Levy attack on a stream on one of my streams this Wednesday. I have an army built up. I use proxies and just see how they do against, say, Firestorm, against Death Chasers and others, and see what I've built up is actually sustainable as an army. So I'm looking forward to trying them out because I've never played them before. So, Nick, do you have anything to say about these guys?
Not a ton, but they got big defense, which is nice. That bonding they can use make it so you can move 3 at a time, which is okay. But when you only get 2 per squad, it's really tough to do anything really effective with them, especially with no range.
Right.
But it is an excuse to kind of use Sir Hawthorne.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've only used them once or twice, like you were saying. They look pretty cool, but I think with the AOA, yeah, they're going to get quite a bit better, but just not. It's still going to be kind of average, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about them.
Okay, and I think that's one thing to seriously consider, though, is the fact that, and this is the same issue I have with Mezzademon Warmongers. I love those guys, but there are only two, and in essence, you can only really move two across the board to get anything done. It's not like you can move a bunch of these across the board in any fast pace at all.
Right.
And it's my fear that it's the same with these guys. You could have multiple squads of these.
You can get overwhelmed.
I mean, how much damage are they really going to be able to deliver? So, in a sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike or Ken, but would they be more considered like a unique hero buff, basically, then just standing by the hero, giving them buff, and the hero taking out opposing armies?
No, I think like their big thing is 5 defense, right? So they're not super easy to kill.
Mm-hmm.
So and they have a lot. They probably have more bonding options than the Romans do, but they have tons of different synergies you can do. Like you can do air elementals, you can do Dumatep, you can do Kosamet. I don't know why you would. You could do the Venok Warlord. You can do Sir Hawthorne. They got these two new guys coming out with AOA. So there's lots of different avenues you can take them in. Like you could do something weird where you have Death Knights, Venok Warlord, and Aubrian Archers because you want the frenzy bonus. So you could do lots of interesting stuff. Like you could do a Kosamet, Dumatef, Death Knight, try to do something cool with the Manubians or Wolves Bedru or something. I mean, at that point you're already losing.
So they're very versatile in that way.
Yeah, I mean, like they have a lot of different options. The problem is none of them are amazing. Right, like when you talk about like the knights, you have like Sir Gilbert. Like there's you have Grimnack with the heavies, right? And with the dwarves, you actually have a lot of good options with the dwarves. Mm-hmm. So like actually, all 4 of those characters are pretty decent. And Meagle's the worst one, and he's actually at least a B or B plus, right? So, but with the Death Knights, like all of theirs are just kind of average, except maybe Raylan's going to be pretty decent. So that's kind of I think their biggest downfall. And 30 points is a lot for. Only activate if they are 90 points, you got to do 3 of them. They might actually be more playable because you got to do 3 activations per turn plus your champion. But 60 points for 30 points, like that's a little high in my opinion.
What points are they delta?
55.
55. Okay, slightly.
So Adam 5 points, yeah, but. But like you can get Doom and Test I think for 15 and Kosamet for like probably negative 40 points or something in Delta. You probably get points back when you draft Kosamet. But anyway, so like yeah, so like in Delta that they maybe have a better shot. I don't know, but like that's their biggest problem really is 3 activations per turn. When like with Alistair McDurk and the Knights that's 6, right? With Mogrim, if it's Commander Strike, that's 6 kind of, right? So like, Niflheim and the 3 green scales at 6. So like, you're getting 3. Like I guess if Hawthorne does his blind rage like crazy, you might get 15 or whatever. But like on average, you're getting 3 at the most. Mm-hmm. But I think that's their biggest downfall. I don't know, Mike or somebody jump in, but
yeah, I mean, I think they got a couple things. One, I think they are harder to play than most other bonding melee because you have to really slow roll them and you have to really understand the slow roll, right? Because if I take 4 knights and push them too far forward against something like, let's say, 4th Mass or whatever, and the 4th Mass shoot and kill, let's say, 2 of those knights, I can still engage with 2. I might just get lucky and like engage with 2 knights and then get 2 kills and not be as punished for my mistake. But if I push really far forward with 1 squad of Death Knights, they kill those 2 Death Knights, I'm now starting another 2 all the way from the back of the start zone, right? So it becomes really important how you play them, and like if I mean, maybe you get lucky just because they have 5 defense, but if you're getting shot 4 times by 4th Mass, you're going to die, right? So you got to make sure that you are slow rolling this and developing this properly. We've talked about it on the Casters of Valhalla a lot, but basically you want to get your army up, get the whole army up, or as much of it as possible. And that's like the first step to playing them better than you, and I don't mean you and targeted towards anybody, but just general are currently playing them, right? Like that's the first step, is to learn to slow roll and be diligent. Like if you start getting shot, you just have to accept it and still get more guys up, because if you don't, you're going to get punished really hard, because then you're just going to have a hero up there doing nothing, getting 1 attack per turn and getting murdered by 4th Mass because you're busy moving the next squad up from your start zone. So I think they're hard to play, or harder to play than others. I think issue 2 is that they don't have any immunities to make up for the fact that they're 30 points per figure, right? So it's not like they're Soulborgs, which would allow them to avoid being plagued by the Morrow Hounds, or even the Marden Hounds, or even chill touched by Cyprian. You also aren't large, which means you're still affected by Cyberclaw. You're affected by Chomp, and you're affected by Braxis and Black Wormlings, and there's just a whole host of these auto kill, auto wound abilities that really the Death Knights don't like to play into, and the Death Knights already aren't great into a bunch of stuff like 4th Mass or 10th Regiment. Q9 Rats is hard for them too. I mean, what are you supposed to do against Q9 Rats? Like, the other armies all have plays into that. Gilbert can dispatch, knights to get free, quote unquote free disengage activations. Heavies have disengage, period. Dwarves at least are 4 defense while they're getting shot. And you're activating 5 of them a turn. You also, or 4 of them plus a hero, plus Mogrim gives you the commander strike to get through the screen. You've also got Burksa with both the Romans and the Chasers, paralyzed stare to get through the screen. And what do you have with Death Knights? You bond with Raylan, and she is -1 defense to their rats when their Raylan's giving +2, and that's just kind of rough. So I think that's, issue that touches on then issue number 3, which is the bonding heroes, as Ken mentioned, just aren't the best. I agree with Ken that Raylan is probably the best right now. Before, I think it was a toss-up between Dumatef, Air Elemental, and Venoch Warlord. Venoch Warlord, I liked just to play super aggressively, to buy time more than anything. He's got 7 move, can run around, hit stuff with 4 dice, and it always feels bad shooting Venoch Warlord because he has 6 life, and you're like, why am I wasting attacks into a 6 life hero that isn't, at the end of the day, doing that much? Dumatef Guard 5/5 on a lot of maps, because a lot of maps use road or castle, so I think he's solid too for 25 points. And then Air Elemental is just very oppressive into melee, so I think, like, before it was kind of a toss-up, like either you go Mittens with a couple Dumatefs, or maybe you go mainly Dumatefs with an air or 2 errors thrown in. Now I think you probably do want Raylan. I'm less convinced on Leviatech. I think Leviatech's good. My issue with Leviatech is, for some reason, and probably I don't know if it's licensing or what it is, but like, unfortunately, they're Valkyrie, so they don't get the move buff. To me, that's a huge oversight. I would have absolutely said that if you have both Leviatech and another Ukkar Kyrie, your Valkyrie squads also get that +1 move. Because these guys with 6 move all of a sudden means that if they do get shot and survive, you have a better chance of being able to engage, right? I think that would have also been a way to improve them. So without that, is it really worth spending 180 points on both Raylan and Leviatech? And I don't know the answer to that yet. My current thought is that no, you probably want Raylan as your main bonder. I think she's better than I thought she was. That -1 defense aura is actually pretty big. That does mean that, because it affects her own attacks as well, so her 3-die attack starts looking a lot closer to Mitten's 4-die attack. Plus, she's 20 points cheaper. Plus, she's giving a buff to the Death Knights, a pseudo buff to the Death Knights, because they're able to kill a little easier too. So, I'd still like to see a better option. Ken hit the nail on the head with the other squads just have better options for bonding. That's the bottom line, is that,
for sure.
Dwarves have Mogrim or Doram, Heavies have Grimneck and Nirak. Knights have Gilbert, and if not Gilbert, they have Alistair. I mean, a double attacking, overextending hero would also work. That would also be a buff for the Death Knights. Chasers have Burksa and Nirak, and now Adelburn, and then the ogres aren't bad. Romans get Marcus, they get Miberxa, both phenomenal bonding options. They even got Valgard to hit stuff with 4 dice, but like usually you're not taking them. So it's just you're just kind of left scratching your head a little bit as to like, why would I play these guys specifically over any of the other options? I think that's their downfall, right? And currently I think the answer is still you want it, but I mean, I think there are things they could do in the future to make these guys a little better. I think they just really need to give some sort of support hero for them, something that directly supports them. Kind of like what they did for the dwarves with Dorum. Jury's still out as to whether Dorum's worth it, but Dorum does directly support the dwarves by giving them that extra move, right? I'd like to see something like, what if Dorum had worked for these guys, giving them an extra move if Dorum got an attack, obviously it wouldn't work for a dwarf to be doing it for the Death Knights, like thematically or whatever, but that sort of power, something to just give them something, that just helps them specifically, right? That would be a pretty big step to improving their viability.
Okay. And now, real quick, yeah, because, okay, so Death Knights, I mean, it seems like they have a little bit of boost, but probably not enough. Probably take more playtesting and see how they just run in tournaments in the future. Let's explore a little bit of the lore behind these characters. So, again, character bio, Death Knights are warriors who choose to come back and fight on even after death. Our Death Knight carries its soul in its weapon. The weapon has the power to become ghostly and pierce armor as if it were not there. Jeremy, anything else we can say about these?
Oh yeah, Death Knights are cool. Lore wise, I mean, nice. we were talking about the mechanics, and I mean, I feel like they have potential. I've seen them do some pretty crazy stuff, and then I've also seen it kind of just fall through, like we've discussed. But the lore of the Death Knight is some of the cool, like. I'll have to say, at least as far as I know, Death Knight's one of the older concepts of Dungeons & Dragons. Like, it's been around for a very long time. Since Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, so like second edition? Or so? Like, I mean, they've been around for a while. So they're like in it. They're part of that, I guess you say the foundation of what Dungeons & Dragons is defined as. And so this, of course, in reference to when it came out, right? It came out during 4th edition. So I'm just going to read this little cool lore bit about them, and then I promise I'll cut myself off. But so the lore. Death Knights share some similarities with liches, in that they're people who became undead through a profane ritual so they could live forever. The main difference here is that they were great warriors instead of potent spellcasters. The ritual is also a bit different. Instead of binding their soul to a phylactery, it binds it to their favored weapon, which becomes known as their soul weapon, aka what's named on the card. Death Knights retain the memories and abilities they had in life, but the ritual distorts their personality into something much nastier than it used to be. Not that they were all nice to begin with, of course. Becoming a Death Knight is a choice, and the ritual itself is an extremely evil act. Still, it's common for them to retain a twisted version of whatever code of honor they followed before. Maybe a Death Knight will wax poetic about how it fell from grace while it guts you. You can expect them to always be superlative combatants and have great skill leading troops. Even non-sapient skeletons become more dangerous under the command of a Death Knight. There you go. So that's a little flavor text, right? Dude, Death Knights are just so, like, they're visually stunning.
Yeah,
They've been a part of the game for a long time. And
Justin saying they're fantastic sculpts, yeah.
Yeah, great material. When I saw them come out for Heroscape, I was super excited because it was like, I've been playing with Death Knights for years, pre-Heroscape, so it's like they've been around. They're like the contemporary fantasy experience for me. It's like I've known about Death Knights forever, so pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and Teamski is saying 5 defense is deceiving with only 2 figures they can whiff hard. Yep. That's one thing to consider. But yeah, it's I mean,
good lore, rough on the mechanics.
Good lore, kind of rough on the mechanics, although probably a little bit more improved with what's being released in AOA. And who knows? There might be something else released in AOA that might buff them even more. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But when it comes to the actual financial cost for these, I think they're more expensive than Death Chasers, perfectly honest. So
Right.
definitely, if you want these, consider 3D printed, painted. There's plenty of options out there. I've personally taken my 3D printer, and not the best 3D printed sculpts, but they work for proxies, and I painted them the best I could, and so voila, I have 4 squads now. So we'll see what I can do with them in the future. Definitely be playing them live stream this coming Wednesday, so we'll see how they do. So
Nice.
for your consider for these, I mean, if you want to play them, if you want something that bonds well, with Evo Raylan, it might be an option. So definitely consider it. They have great lore. Possibly can be great fun during casual tournament play. So check them out if you would like to consider them for your Heroscape collection. All right, now before we get started with the next, I think we need to have Nobleman Nick bow out gracefully. Everybody wants to check out Nick's YouTube channel. There is a link in the description below for his channel. Check him out. He plays a lot of Heroscape, records a lot of games, and he's posting quite often. He's got something new popping up on his YouTube channel. So check him out. Give him some sub love. And Nick, anything you want to say before you head out?
Just thanks for the shout out. Yeah, I try to put a video on every week or two, or maybe multiple. And yeah, just thanks for the shout out. I'll have to see you guys later.
All right, you take care, sir.
See you later, Nick.
See ya.
See ya.
All right, and let me catch up real quick with the chat here, because I'm sorry I've been ignoring you all. I'm not really ignoring, but it's like I had to do other things.
You're doing how many things at once? I'm not,
that's
not surprised. You have so much on your plate.
Sounded mean, but no. Hello, Dan, Teamski, Justin, all y'all in the chat. Let's see here. What is it? Justin saying more charge also helps you grab glyphs if you don't have a swag. Yeah, with Death Chasers, yeah.
Dan's comment blew my mind. You have to
it's crazy you're talking about the Mongolian area of D&D verse, and I'm on a plane to Uzbekistan, which is in Central Asia. Oh, no kidding, Dan. Wow.
So they're above Mongol, like they're in that area while we were talking about
that.
It. Like,
that is wild.
Yeah,
that is wild.
Well, Dan, I hope you're having safe travels, and thank you for just hopping in on the stream. That's a first, I think, for this stream. So
for the stream,
yeah. I hope you're still listening, and you take care, and just let us know how you're doing in the coming days and weeks. I don't know why you're out there, but you just take care of yourself. Let's see here. Justin's saying, are any Heroscape units cheap to acquire? Well, some that we might already have multiples of. Even Rise of the Valkyrie figures are increasing in price. Yeah, slightly. And price increase might happen, or it's probably going to happen, yeah, as soon as we get more stuff and more demand coming in. Justin says, I ended up not picking up a single pack with Valkyrie figures. I just wanted other D&D packs more, and at that point in the release, I learned it's better to get multiple of commons. Yep. There might be a time in the future to where I know, like, probably the end of the month of July, we're going to be talking about Delta points a little bit, and we're going to just discuss their background a little bit. We're going to try to get some guests on to talk about that and go over that. But I know sometime down the road we need to talk about just common squads in general. Because I personally love common squads. Maybe I haven't just done enough to where I don't have a disagreement about them. But I know there are some people out there who just like, I just plain don't like common squads. How could you? I know you spend a lot of money, but how could you? So it might be something that we need to talk about in the future. Let's see here. Justin says instead of pick up one pack of everything, or like 4 packs of everything, basically. And Justin says, I actually have a half a squad of Death Knights from an eBay I bought years ago. Yeah, that happens. Let's see here. Teamski, Teamski. I have my 4 squads. I think it said Death Knights when I collected Heroscape back in the day. Well, there you go. Yeah, okay, and so we're caught up there. And all right, so let's see. What time is it? We're keeping pretty good time, so we can move on to the Death Reavers. Let me bring them up here. And I don't know if let's see with Josiah. I don't know Jeremy. Unless who really likes these guys? Because I can open up the field to whoever wants to. Or is it not too loved? Jeremy, maybe we'll have you.
Okay,
do this.
So
do this
yeah,
one.
I have to be the black sheep because, and this is of course, my main presence. The lore for the Death Reavers is great.
Okay. Well, let's do stats and opinions on gameplay. Then we'll get into lore. Yeah, because I understand.
So I'm like, yeah, but no, mechanically, oh gosh. All right, so we got Death Reavers, loyal to Utkar, summoned by Utkar, and the Soulborgs, common squad, Death Reaver class, tricky, small 3. So one of our first options for the tinies, like just swarm squads that are out there in the game. Their special power, they have Scatter, which is after a Death Reaver you control rolls defense dice against normal attack from an opponent's figure. You may move any 2 Death Reavers you control up to 4 spaces each. And then there's Disengage, which is Death Reavers are never attacked when leaving an engagement. Climb times 2, which is when moving up or down levels of terrain. Death Reavers may double their height. They have life of 1 as common squads, of course, and then move of 6 because they're all over the place. Range 1, attack 1, defense of 4. I've had experience. I've had lots of angst with these entities, as one would say. And then score 40 points. They're rough. They're rough to fight against. It feels awful to play them because it's like, how do I explain it? This is only going to make sense to people who's ever played Destiny. But it's like they're the Jotun of Heroscape. They're like that got one gun that everyone has and everyone uses, and it's always good. There's no question to the meta. There's no question to their potency. They're super great, but you're just mad because if you see them in the battlefield and you're fighting against them, exhausted, right? Because you're just like, oh gosh, not them again. But when you're playing them, it's like.
But Jeremy, there's like they're not. They don't synergize with anybody. Isn't that an issue if they don't like synergize with anybody? Actually, they synergize with Morgoth. I actually have Morgoth. Oh my goodness. Okay, I might consider that. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of a mock question, but it's good that they don't.
Is so intense. There's like, and since we have the time to talk about it, we have now officially gotten to the point in the ToV Live where we get the ToV podcast, where we get to talk about the Death Reavers, these entities that have dominated the scene. And it's just, I hope this conversation following will explain to new players, veteran players, everyone, just why these characters are so. It just has so many feelings associated with Death Reavers, especially when you play against them. And it's we're going to be talking about that. It's going to be fun.
Yeah,
you'll see.
And Josiah, how about you go first? You haven't really had much of a chance to talk, so I'll let you go first, sir.
Yeah, so first I love their little Utkar tattoos they have on their side, just visually. I think it's a nice little detail. Yeah, these guys kind of exist in a trifecta fork scenario where no matter what you do against them, unless you're very prepared, they come out on top. So with that high defense, you attack them, chances are you may not even kill one. And if you attack them, then they have a chance to move, and then they have the ability to move far, and there's 4 figures in the squad. So they just kind of do too many things well, and I see why people use them. But yeah, they're just I get what they're doing. I just think they have too much defense. If I was to redesign this card from scratch, I would probably lower that defense to make them more just scatter unit.
For 40 points, that's huge value there for like the classic point. What are they delta points?
60.
Are they 60? Okay, so that makes it a little bit better. See, this is the value of delta points here. But yeah, okay, go ahead, Josiah. What were you saying?
Yeah, so I just think these guys are less good in draft formats if you know how to take them on, but if you're in a tournament setting where they're just there and you're not prepared for it, then you're gonna really get stuck in the little tiny bodies, not move much.
Absolutely. Okay. And Ken, do I dare ask you?
You got it. You got it.
I despise these guys with every soul. I'm like,
I hate it with a passion.
I have been playing competitively since 2007, and I have beaten thousands and thousands and thousands of Death Reavers. I probably lost to hundreds and hundreds of Death Reavers. As a melee player, like you have to you use a lot of brain power to beat these guys. Heavies love these. Heavies don't mind because you have chomp and disengage, right? You just bite a hole and run through.
Sure.
Like Mike said, with Gilbert, you can dispatch disengage. So you may lose a knight, but at least you didn't give up the order marker or the movement or the turn, I guess, with the knight. And dwarves are a little trickier. You do have commander strike, but like Mike said, at least when they're shooting at you with 4 defense, Q9, or I always say Q9 and rats because that's always what happens. Like Death Reavers or not Death Reavers, Death Chasers. Meeberg Saw, but like the 4 attack is good, but like the problem is, you can have 3 locked down. You kill one, he scatters the other 2 away, and then like you whiff your other 2 attacks, right? So, because how you beat these guys is you force your opponent to put order markers back on them, because every time you kill one or attack one, he's getting half an order marker for free. So like you have to be able to force him to continue to put order markers on them. So you're really trying to poke and prod and trying to maneuver around them, trying to take key disengagements. Because a lot of people over the years in Heroscape, I found out like they see engagement as like not Cyberclaw, like you can't move, but Cyberclaw in terms of like you can't leave that character, especially with the squad figure. They just somehow think you're locked in position. Where when I first started playing, I was just disengaging, and people were like, I don't know what the hell's going on, because if I just stay there and fight your rats, I'm going to lose. So like we talk about this all the time in the podcast. Like you got to make choices. Like you got to play to your outs, and my out is you whiff that leave an engagement strike, and I get to your Niflheim or your Q9 and start wailing on them with my dwarves. So, so like these guys, like you have to take chances with these guys, like disengage if you have to. I mean, I wouldn't recommend triple disengage or anything, but you have to really poke and prod at the walls they build and really force them to continue to put order markers on them as you're maneuvering your squads or whatever. So like these guys, these guys were everywhere, like 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Once Mark started doing reverse the whip, they started going down a little bit in 2011. We continued doing it. They went down more and more and more and more and more. But you still see them in cheese tournaments, anything like that. So yeah, they're just. I hate these guys. I do not enjoy them. I think like there's so many things that could have been better. Like 0 attack, like 60 points, like 3 defense, like not disengage, like move up 2 more, but they can't disengage. Like so they could have done. So I think originally like rats were attacking rats to get them to move, and they had to errata that. Yeah. So like, that's so. I mean, can you imagine rats attacking rats? Like it's just a disaster. Plus, the game's going to take like 40 minutes longer. So, but yeah, no, I hate these guys. I despise them. I'm a melee player though too. I mean, they're not great. Like Fourth Mass hate them too. So it's not just melee. So if you need special attack, or you need like chomp or acid breath or something like that to get through these guys.
And they're A+, power rankings. So in most tournaments that have those limits, you're not going to be able to use them anyway. Correct.
If they have some sort of restricted list or something like that,
yeah. So. Okay. And Alex, do you have any thoughts about these guys?
Every time I've ever played against them, even when I've used them, it has been just like you guys mentioned, just holding down the field, and what you mentioned, actually like getting through, disengaging. That is like your best bet. I mean, it's a 50-50 shot. You might lose a squad in doing that, but I mean, they just lock you in place unless you have the gruts and you can just disengage so easily. They're just very difficult to like. I mean, I had this funny idea I told Nick we need to do one of these days for a video. We just do like it's like the most annoying most annoying armies facing off, like Goblin Cutters and Death Reavers, because they both can disengage constantly and scatter. And I thought that'd be fun. He's like, no one's gonna want to watch that.
Yeah. And Mike, any thoughts about? I know Ken gave some good advice when it comes to like playing against them. And any thoughts you have about these?
Yeah, I guess I'll be the dissenter here. I actually think they're pretty tactically interesting. I only really have an issue with them when they're paired with Raylan. Like, to me, that's the one combination in the game that I think is just unbearable. 6 defense rats is just not okay. Like, Raylan plus Q9, I don't mind because it's just 9 defense Q9. Whatever, I can kill that. Q9 plus rats, like, if they don't have Raylan and it's 4 defense rats, all of a sudden my attacks at least do something. It's not like I'm like, it's if I am taking attacks into rats, at least there's a reasonable shot I'm getting kills with, like, 4 attack heavies or 4 attack knights buffed or whatever. So it's just like, but when there's 6 defense, they just become extremely oppressive. That's my perspective, at least. I think like running 1 to 2, like 1 squadron reverse the whip is been something people have experimented with. I've definitely experimented with it. I haven't brought to ScapeCon before, but it's just like the 1 squad of rats just to be like, tying but if you have 1 squad, you have to use them really well, right? Like you have to, know what you're doing exactly, know exactly what you want to tie up, where you want to position them, because if you lose one, you're losing, one of your only 4 rats, right? So I think in like Delta, they're a lot more manageable too. Like 3 rats Q9 is like 400, I don't know, 440, 450, somewhere in that vicinity points. And like, that's an army I feel pretty comfortable beating with most melee armies in Delta. It's just, without Raylan, they're just not a huge deal in my opinion. I think they're a skill check from both sides of the table though. I think it's a high skill matchup with melee versus Q9 rats. I do expect the better player to win most times in that matchup, just regardless of, who's playing it. But the Q9 rats player needs to understand that they have to keep reinvesting order markers into the rats and against somebody that's good with melee, and the melee player has to understand when to attack, when not to attack. Even into range, same with like rats into 4th mass or something. I know Chris Perkins lost to my buddy Hound's Rule in 3-headed Hydra last year. My buddy had 4th mass, 4 squads of 4th mass into Q9 3 rats. And like everybody, you look at that on paper, and that's a terrible matchup for 4th mass. 4th mass are going to lose, yada yada. Well, I had taught my friend that summer, like 2 weeks earlier, because I only had about 2 weeks last year to prep due to the bar exam. I taught him that, look, you're going to look for the opening and you're going to see, is my win condition this game killing all the rats or killing Q9 and never attacking a rat? And you're going to look at his order markers and you're going to figure out, and him being general him, you're going to figure out how you're going to win this game, right? Is it going to be disengages? Is it going to be just killing, because there are only 4 defense, there's only 12 of them. Can you kill them fast enough? If you can't, never shoot one. Chris Perkins didn't reinvest in order marker, and Chris is a very good player, of course, but everybody makes mistakes. He didn't reinvest in order marker in the next round. Emery saw it, he seized upon it, he got a little lucky with the dice, but it's like, that's what happens when you don't reinvest that order marker, right? So that's the thing. I think it's a skill army from both sides of the table. So I think, again, if you take Raylan out of the equation, making the rat 6 defense, in which case, like, you can make the right call and just still not win that game. I just think that pairing is really unhealthy. But otherwise, again, I think in a lot of formats, rats without Raylan are very manageable. They're an interesting piece. It's just cool to have something so different in Heroscape where its one goal is defensive, right? Yes, you get little bites here or there, but its main role is defensive, and there really aren't a lot of units that do that. You have Warriors of Asher, but I mean, honestly, from my perspective, Warriors of Asher are, like, if they were good, like really good, they'd be way more oppressive than rats. In a world where Warriors of Asher was a 4-man squad, let's say, and like A tier, with melee, I would way rather face rats than Warriors of Asher.
For sure.
Maybe that would be the thing that, Warriors of Asher being good, maybe that would be the thing that put Death Knights over the edge of being like top tier competitive, right? As a counter or something. But like, yeah, warriors I think are just much more impressive for melee. I'd much rather play in a world where rats are the thing that are good. And like sometimes you gotta understand like when do you take bites and when do you just develop more up, and how many order markers you put on, which ones you scatter. You know, there's a lot of tactically interesting things with them. So I don't mind them. Again, just no Raylan plus rats. I think that's where it gets annoying.
Yeah, and one thing I appreciate is the scatter ability, and this is one thing that I discovered when it come to like goblin cutters. I played those like a week ago. It's great to have them separate when they get attacked, and then you can regroup and then attack again. Now goblin cutters are a little bit different of a of a strategy with them, but I found that it's very valuable to have that, and then no you have a disengage, and you're able to regroup and then reform against your enemy. So I see the value in that, and I think if they didn't have that scatter, it would be a lot less value for those guys. Now let's go into the character bio here. Jeremy, I'll just give you the whole hash of it. If you want to read the character bio and then talk about the lore, and I'll give you about let's say 5 minutes. Okay.
Oh, okay. Let's see. 10:33. All right, I'm watching. I got my eye on the timer. So character bio. A mile beneath the surface of Alpha Prime, a Meridian woman holds her arms tightly around her knees, rocking back and forth, trying not to make a sound. Echoing through the maze of tunnels and shafts is the sound of scratching. Oh. A horrible sound, all too familiar. They've sent out the rodents, vile little machines, always seeking, always scratching, always gnawing. It's not so much the threat of the Death Reaver in and of themselves that incites overwhelming fear. It's what they bring. The Reavers are sent out as scouts to crawl into the smallest places, climb over and through the roughly built barriers, and find what they seek.
Oop. Sorry.
Oh gosh, you're good.
Yeah, see, I knew this type of thing would happen. All right, there, when attacked.
No, you're good. When attacked, the Reavers scatter. If even one of them lives to return to the surface, the Meridians know they'll have to abandon their hard-earned shelter, and so they fight. And so they fight. They fight with everything they have to pry open their horrible metal shells and gut the Reavers of all their twisted wires and cold circuits. All right. So yes, we have some pretty good lore from the Death Reavers. Of course, we learn about the Meridians, which, if you know from your Blastertron bio lore, when we got to go over the Blastertrons a couple episodes ago, we learned that Meridian was the original name of the planet Alpha Prime. Okay, so the Meridians created the Solborg. Right, there was a scientist. This is a quick summary, I promise. There's a scientist who created the Solborg because they lost a child to an accident. They tried to bring that person back from the dead,
Right.
and found a way to basically enshrine consciousness into a metallic body. And then they were able to basically replicate the process multiple times to the point of creating the Solborg. And so we come across the Solborg 3,000 years later. So most of the Solborg that are being summoned onto Valhalla are 3,000 years after the first Solborg was invented. And then that's where we start getting all the martial types, like the Death Reavers and the Death Chiefs, or Death Stalkers and all of that. And yeah, the Meridians are mostly, like most of the Meridians that we know, are either the ones hiding in this canal that's in this lore, or they have been shipped off to the world Isidora, where the Warden comes from. So that's where we're at right now. They gave a really effective presentation of what was going on in the planet where the Solborgs come from, and as you can see, so can justify it. It's just everyone hates them, even on their home world, they're hated. So it's like, there's it's the fact that they're described as scouts. They go out, they bring the worst of what the Solborg army has to offer, and so that's why everyone's like, once they hear the rats, they're like, please no. So even they're just scared of them. And there you go.
I
I did it in
found
5
that more
minutes.
creepy too when I first read it. And I was like, they did a good job making that kind of creepy. Even for as a kid, when you first read it, you're like, it's kind of nerving.
Yeah.
It's really I don't know if that was Colby that wrote that, or if it was one of the previous writers, because I don't think Colby took over until Swarm of the Morrow. But yeah, whoever the previous writers were at that point with Thor's Vengeance, some of their bios are really, really well written, and you're just like love Heroscape storyline, good stuff.
I wanted to bring up real quick when you mentioned the first Soulborg, it was 3,000 years later. For us, that's like the equivalent of like someone doing this in ancient Egypt, and now we're having now. And I'm like, that's even our time, but that's a long period of time, and just the idea that it took that long and everything fell apart, the whole world. So
yep, exactly. No, the story theme of Alpha Prime plays really well in just like the designs, the units that we get. But as far as lore goes, I highly recommend, if anyone has a chance to read it again, the Blastotrons bio is really good. Gladiatrons, the Majors, and then of course the Death Reavers. They all kind of give you a really good photo presentation of what's going on the homeworld. And chat's even saying, I hope they do bring some Meridians into Renegade's Heroscape editions. It's a really easy option. It's already laid out in the story. You don't really have to do much. You get to create a sort of rebel faction that can do, if you want to do some damage to Soulborg, right? You want to add a little extra mechanic benefit to anyone that wants to do anti-Soulborg builds. You could create a Meridian army. So that would be really cool. And just thematically, you got the rebel creators of the Soulborg coming back to fight. They're like, we created them so we can take them apart too. So we got it'll be really cool theme in the future of the game. I hope to see.
All right, and so that's taking a look at Death Reavers, a beloved hated,
yeah.
Common squad.
I mean, if you like rats and you like robots, they're fun. If you don't, then
I would agree with kind of Mike. Definitely, they shouldn't be used lightly. Make sure you know how to use them in order to use them. And I don't know about financially. I'm sure they're a bit valuable on the market. But again, 3D print if you need them, because you need a squad of 4. But they definitely have their value. Whether or not your opponent loves you or hates you if you play them, it remains to be seen. But definitely a challenging and unique squad to consider for your Heroscape collection. All right, and so now what we're going to do, I think it's all the squads we're going to do tonight, and then we're going to move on to the next topic in a second. Here, let me just get this down. I'm going to catch up with the chat, though, so here, let me stop sharing. Let me get this up here. Let me see here, because I know we got some comments here. Let me scroll up. Okay, let's see. Team is saying people complained up front about the game becoming Squadscape. So the anti-squad sentiment is not new with the cost of new figures. This will not get any better. Yeah, I think Common Squad is something this topic we need to discuss sometime in the future. 4 figures for 40 points is not that bad, says TeamSki. They swarm the enemy, keeping them engaged while you hit them with range. Yeah, you got to know how to build them for sure. I mean, 40 points, classic. Delta does make them a little bit more valuable, so you do have to think about it, especially if you're in a tournament with Delta. Let's see here, Justin saying, I hate the Death Reavers. Well, I guess that's, it goes around. My brother usually had Knights of Gilbert and Rats in Q9, and they always destroyed my Vipers or Omnicron builds. Nobleman Nick says, I remember when I first got these thinking they were just awful, and years later understanding them a little better. Now you can put them again just about anything and hold them off height. Yeah, when it comes to Death Reavers, yeah. Let's see here, while you come with whatever army you have with Reavers, yep.
I mean, they don't look that intimidating when you look at the figures and like imagine when you bought them in the stores back in the day. But now, like, you get the card, you're like, oh, these are actually pretty effective.
When you understand the value of scatter and disengage, and their 4 defense, then
it's crazy what can happen as a result of just the scatter alone, because it's like tangling everyone up and you're stuck and you're like, oh, I can't leave, but they can leave whenever they want, but I can't. Like,
it's like I like the scatter ability. It's actually an ability I'd like to see revisited, but maybe with a different kind of squad format. Something that like keeps on bringing in. Like I feel like the goblins kind of did that concept right. Like they kind of took the bad parts and like it's still kind of annoying to fight, but it still is slightly satisfying because odds are you're going to be at least able to kill 1 or 2 goblins in a turn. Depending on how they position. But these guys, you can take shoot 4 rounds at them and still miss, and they just move their whole army up further. So it's like, just I think they have too much good going for them and not enough like drawbacks.
It's good though that Death Reavers don't have a huge attack because with Goblin Cutters you can regroup and then really hit your enemy hard with it. It's one thing I love about those guys, to where it's like I was so impressed. I just brought them on because of like I bought a bunch of miniatures of them. Like, okay, I'll play them. Didn't realize how effective they actually are. I'm like, okay, I really don't using these for ScapeCon because they are really, really nice. So here, Taco Trash 3R says, you all are live so late. Well, it's only 10:43. The night's young. Let's see here. Justin says, funny you mention Warriors of Astra because they came in the same pack of Death Reavers. Okay, yeah, and Warriors of Astra, I know that's a squad that I want to use. You gotta it's the beauty of Heroscape. There's so much stuff that you gotta really limit to what you want to choose. Otherwise, you're just overwhelmed. Yeah, Astra is one that I like to tackle one day, but it's not going to be anytime soon. But they are really good. They are a good squad.
That was the let's make melee players life harder pack. Specifically.
Yeah, that's a good statement for that.
For sure.
Yeah.
John Angelo says, excellent Death Reavers discussion. Never was a fan, though Scatter's creative. Great thoughts in dealing with them and tournament history. Absolutely. Let's see what Justin's saying. Meridians never, and you mentioned this already, Jeremy. Meridians never showed up in Classic, but got some love with VC. Actually, yeah, that's one good reason to dive in VC.
I'm a fool.
Yeah.
I should
Extra
probably
content.
mention I wrote the bio for the Meridians in VC. So
there you go.
How
He's the guy who knows. He know these things.
Yeah. So, and I will say the Death Reavers were a big help in kind of like landing the aesthetic that I worked with when I was writing. So yeah, how did I forget? I write so much,
I told you limit to 5 minutes, so
that's
you were focused. You were focused in your mind.
I was,
which is just fine.
Great.
And see here, Justin says, one of the figures I hope Renegade might give us official units. Teamski says, maybe a year there is 10 days, just saying. Yep. Justin saying, maybe a pirate and laugh each time he's in the same army as the Admiral. Okay. All right, so that's catching up with the comments there. And again, thank everybody for commenting. Now, let's get into the next topic, which is... before we close, and this is more on Mike, so I'm just going to let Mike here. I'm actually going to give you center stage here. I don't have, since Heroscapers.com is kind of on the fritz and I didn't have time to screenshot it, we don't have any visual, but Mike, go ahead and explain what this topic is all about. There is a link in the description below, though, for anybody who is who's interested in taking a look, and I think this helps in the organization and running of tournaments. So Mike, go ahead, you have the floor.
Yeah, so I guess there's going to be 2 related topics here. One is what you're referencing, another is sort of, it's definitely related, and some of what I'm going to be releasing regarding that is going to be added to the first part. So let's start with the first part. The first part is a comprehensive rules treatise, and what this is a book. It's really a document. It's a Google Doc, so I can progressively update it as necessary. That encompasses every ruling in the FAQ and every ruling in the books. At least every worthwhile one. There were just a couple that were nonsense. There was one question that was, wait, really? And then the answer was yes, really, regarding a previous question, right? So stuff like that, we're taken out. Before tournament directors and players especially, let's say you're playing a game and you have a question as to how this works, right? What actually happens here? How does some power interact with another, or just how does a power work, right? How does Glacier Traverse work on the Zootet, right? It's not worded completely clearly. How does grenades work? How does stealth leap work? Just there's so many powers that you just can't fit all of the clarifications that you're ever going to need on a single army card. It's just never going to happen. Oftentimes the language is clear if you know what to look for, but that the rule books are kind of famously bad, and there's a lot of there's a lot of lack of clarity there in the official rule books, and even in Renegades that's going to be coming out. They have their draft up, which it's just the nature of the beast. There's too much. You can't put everything in the rule book. You need FAQs, you need clarifications elsewhere, right? It's just part of the beast of a game like this. So that was really what I was going to do to start, and this started after ScapeCon 1 when I didn't know where to look for something. It's like, okay, I'm checking all these different places and I'm not finding what I need, or not easily finding what I need as a tournament director. And it was like, okay, let me copy and paste every ruling, and I'm just going to compile everything, right? I'm just going to throw everything into one Google Doc. I started doing that. Actually, Dysel started doing that. She just posted, I think she copy pasted the entire FAQ and I think A through D of the books into a single Google Doc. And then we kind of didn't do anything with it for years. That was, again, 2021 ScapeCon 1, and it just fell by the wayside. There's so much that goes into ScapeCon. You can only focus on so much a year. That one in particular completely fell by the wayside until more recently, probably 4 months ago or so, 3 or 4 months ago. I don't remember what started it again, but I just was like, you know what? I want to get this done. I want to create this for ScapeCon 4. Also, with more new players coming into the game, more new scenes popping up, I think it's important for the rules, and rulings to be very accessible for players, right? Players should be able to find a ruling on something like how does flying work, or how does stealth flying work, and not have to dig through some website that goes down, it seems, every other day now. Why can't we just have a single document that explains this, and then also a document that explains the rationale and the reasoning behind some of these rulings? I'm not explaining everything, but there's certainly principles that once you understand how a whole group of abilities work, right? Because they all follow the same principles within that. A clear example is with special attacks. I have a section that just begins by explaining, well, here are the basic rules of special attacks. If you understand these, then you move on to the next section, and here are the rules regarding the difference between targeting and affecting a figure and why that matters, and here are the 4 ways it matters. And then there are a bunch of explosion attacks, and guess what? The explosion language on Deathwalker 9000 is completely different than the explosion language on Jordan. Does that matter, right? Do those powers work the same, or do they not? And it's a mess, So it was a lot of digging through threads and digging through stuff to resolve these issues, and talking to people like Ken and talking to people like Cytail and Doc and Superfrog. Is consulting with other people that are knowledgeable and trying to resolve and find clarity and provide that clarity. And then also, I was just gonna copy and paste everything into one big doc, and it kind of hit me that, well, the raw document that I'm starting from, that's just a full copy and paste, is 110 pages long, which is just excessive, right? That's so long. There are also lots of related abilities that work the same or roughly the same, so doesn't it make sense to handle those together? And then it got me thinking, well, why don't I systematically move through from sort of topic by topic, right? All the movement stuff is together, right? And there's a bunch of sections, there's movement in general, there's movement flying, there are the flying like powers, which are like stealth leap and grapple gun, how does swirling vortex work, right? What about movement, placing versus moving? When is that the same? When is it a little different? Why don't I rewrite? And then frankly, the official rulings, a lot of them, some are very, and it was, I don't want to sound too critical, but some of them are very unprofessional, where somebody, a response to a stealth leap question is, because he's a crazy leaping monk and he's awesome. Like we're talking like stuff like that. It's like, do I really want this in my document? Well, no. And then others have just wrong rationale. There's a ruling regarding explosion attacks that says you target a hex. No, you always target a figure. You're attacking a figure. You're not attacking a hex, which is why when you attack a double space figure, you hit all figures next to that figure. That's common sense. You're shooting Q9. You're not shooting the one hex that his front foot is standing on. But that's the language in the FAQ, because you have to understand that these aren't all written by somebody like, a Craig Van Noss or somebody that's really knowledgeable. Some of these are from just random, employees of Wizards of the Coast at various times. So they're not all using proper Heroscape terminology. So that basically was the impetus for me completely overhauling it, rewriting almost all of it, and reassembling everything into very clear, if you have a question on movement stuff, it's all going to be found in the movement section. You're not going to be searching for this in a huge document. And I also made sure to, make everything super consistent. The language throughout is consistent, right? And the, every ability goes ability name, and then in parentheses, the character or characters that has that. And so I kept that consistent. And so if you search the document, if you have a question on Sir Gilbert, who has Jandar's Dispatch, if you search either Sir Gilbert or Jandar's Dispatch, you're immediately going to come to the ruling you need, right? Which is like, I just asked Ken about this today, because this is another thing I'm doing, is including other stuff that's not in the official FAQ in the books that are true, that are right. So for example, Sir Gilbert using Jandar's Dispatch on a Sentinel of Jandar. Can that Sentinel of Jandar fly during that dispatch move? And the answer is yes, both based on the text of the card and based on an official ruling I found from 2006 in a random post that you would never know exists, But I went digging for that today and I found it because I wanted to be able to footnote that and say that not only am I saying it's true, but I also do have an official source for this. What about Jandar's Dispatch then on Zutet? Well, Zutet, the answer is no, because it's instead of moving normally, and that knight would not be moving normally, right? So, and I'm not going to get into a ton of minutia here with a ton of different stuff, but that's an example of, that's something that can absolutely come up any day, right? Any day somebody can be playing Gilbert with Knights and Sentinels or something, and they might have that question. And before this document, you would check the FAQ and it's not there, and then you would check the book and it's not there. So what's that player left to do, right? So that's my goal as well, is to include more of these rulings and try to put as much, just as much stuff into this one place in an easy, logical, consistent and clear manner, right? And then there's a little more, that I also stepped in and added that's not technically official. For example, I know myself and the OHS guys had created a joint ruling on a couple key things, including grenades, because grenades are a mess. We revised the rules completely because the official, first of all, the FAQ and book rulings were a mess and didn't cover all the situations. And then there was an official ruling a couple years later that was also a mess, led to really bizarre results, was more complicated than it needed to be. So we collaborated for a couple days and figured it out. A more famous example is the ladders, which is a bit of a meme in the community. You have to understand that was in a private chat between me and some OHS guys and a couple other people, and it was thousands and thousands of messages over a week of arguing and debating and reading and researching old threads and trying to figure out how the heck ladders work, because the rules for ladders are awful. The rule book, the Fortress of the Archcavalry rulebook has 10 pages devoted to, maybe it's not 10, but it's got a lot of pages devoted with a ton of example pictures, and it is the most unclear, non-coherent set of rules in all of Heroscape. I mean, it is truly terrible.
So, if something's that incoherent, would it be a good thing to bring it to a big event of 78 people, or would it be better to not use ladders? Just asking.
Well, luckily, myself and the OHS guys created nice, comprehensive, easy to understand and apply rules for Escape, that we're using for Escape content. So we did the work for you.
Yeah, because I know we have at least
or-
one map that has ladders. I know of at least one.
Take the map with no ladders. I mean, that could have been your other option, but that's all right. That's okay.
For reference, Ken gave me crap for like a week, every day, consistently about including that map in the pool. Yeah, no, ladders are complicated. But anyway, so I included that in the document, and I basically said, look, if you want, and I'll end up just footnoting it, but I'm basically advising TOs use these rules, right? Technically, maybe overstepping my authority. I mean, it's my document. I can do what I want, of course, but like, if you don't want to follow the joint OHS and ScapeCon rules to make ladders at least somewhat workable, you don't have to. I'm definitely, and it's clear in there that this is community rules on this, right? That this is technically not official. Technically you have to use the ladder when walking down. It doesn't make any sense that you do. And the FAQ is, in our opinion, just sort of poorly worded. It was more dealing with moving up that you have to use the ladder, but it technically says, there's technically an FAQ entry that says you must use the ladder. So we decided to ignore that. We just said, no, if you want to skip the ladder, skip the ladder. We're not going to make you walk down the side of the cliff, basically, right? It doesn't make any sense. So I included that stuff. I also included a comprehensive combat chart. It's one of the sections, and I worked on it for a while, probably a week, on just that chart, and it resolves every single ability that comes up in combat. If you have a question of how does Venomous Sting interact with Isamu's Vanish, how does Tandros Creel's Cleave interact with Scurry and Scatter, etc. And a couple of these, and it's footnoted, and I actually put a big commentary section, a couple paragraphs that explains this as well. A couple of these are ScapeCon rulings, right? Because the official rule is really that for some of this stuff is that you have to roll a d20, and every single time it comes up, you have to roll a d20 to see which will resolve first, which is, it slows down the game, and it means that the players don't know what's going to happen, right? You have no way of knowing which is going to happen first, which to me is also something that should be avoided whenever possible. The official rulings do a really good job of always ignoring and figuring out some way to make it so that it's not a D20 roll. That's just the final tiebreaker, really, and it, in my opinion, should be reserved as such. So, I mean, yeah, that's basically it. I mean, it's a long document. The last thing, and what I was going to say as well, is that I'm going to be adding in some basic, I don't want to say ethical guidelines, but like, here is what happens in Heroscape tournaments, right? Here's how people act. And this, as from one tournament director to another, because this document is definitely for players to search up rulings when they need, 100%. It's also for tournament directors. It's supposed to be also guidance. Here is coming from somebody that's run tournaments for a long time, that's running ScapeCon that has, 78 people. Here is how you should handle some of these situations, right? Should you allow rule sharking? Should you allow angle shooting? What does that look like? What does that mean for mandatory stuff? Like, do you have to remind your opponent that they get height? And if the answer is yes, it's a mandatory thing. They're not allowed to not roll for height or for Raylan or for jungle. Same with Wanok. All these things are mandatory triggers. You must do them. You must remind your opponent. Same with Plague. Same with Searing Intensity. I mean, this is undisputable stuff, but it's just good to have that in clarity. But then there's some more gray areas where it's like, what about, and I had somebody call this on me when I was 15, and I mean, I still won that game, but I had somebody call it on me where I started to move Nirak before I moved the heavies, and then he said, I started to move the heavies before Nirak. I started to move one heavy, and I went, oh, I haven't moved Nirak. And he said, nope, you can't. You started moving your heavy. You can't go back and move. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's how we're playing. That's like not cool at all, but I guess that's how you're going to try to beat a 15-year-old kid. So that's something that to me is unacceptable. Nobody in the community currently does that. I mean, we're talking like early Gen Con. We're talking like 2012, 2013 when that happened to me. Nobody in the community does that anymore. It's sort of self-selected out any of the bad actors just because it's such a small community. Everybody talks, everybody knows each other. I'm going to be posting the ScapeCon regulations, which are going to include guidance on stuff like this, and I'm gonna, to finally tie that back into the original document, I'm going to include that as a section, right? And that's going to be something that every tournament director gets to decide for themselves. But in my opinion, this is based on seeing how people act and play in this community, because it's way better than any other community I've been in. I played in a lot of other, a fair number, I shouldn't say a lot of, but a fair number of other competitive communities, and I could say that stuff like that would 100% be called on you in those other communities, and it would be enforced. The judge, if you called the judge and was like, but why does it matter? The judge would be like, no, you started to do that. Or like, let's say you were playing fourth mass and you declared that you were going to attack with this one guy. Technically, that's like initiating the attack. In a lot of other communities and systems, once you declared that, you couldn't change your mind. That you declared your intent to attack with that guy, you must go through with it, right? It's like, it's the stupidest crap, and we don't play like that. We're way more laid back, and it's just unacceptable. That's the bottom line. And some people might think I'm overstepping my bounds with that. Once again, it's my document, and it's my event. If you don't like it, that's too bad, but there's nobody in the community that plays like that. There's nobody that angle shoots that. Just be good to each other. That's the bottom line. Is just be, if you come with a good attitude and you're good to each other, everybody's gonna have a great time. You're gonna have a great time. Everyone else will have a great time. That's, Ryan and Jeremy, you've seen it. Nobody's angle shooting at ScapeCon.
Right.
Definitely agree with everything you said there. That was pretty good.
Yeah, and there are people talk in the chat saying to you, Mike, thank you for creating something, because it sounds like it's going to be a good tool, a good useful tool to use in the future, where you just have everything compiled, and very, very useful when you do have like issues or questions, like because I know there's been a time or two in ScapeCon to where I've had a disagreement with my opponent on something about like a rule for a miniature or whatever, or for a squad or hero or whatever, and we would have to have someone in charge come and make the decision. And I know one time it was actually against me, like I was wrong in the situation, and I'm like, okay, I can accept that, that's fine, it was something that I just wanted clarifying, and that's fine, as long as we keep that, even if you don't like the decision, as long as you keep that presence of goodwill to the person, and keep an open communication. I think that's a very important thing, and it's good to relay in a tool like this as well. So yeah, really appreciate that, Mike. And I understand that there's probably months and months and months of work that you probably put into that. So yeah, definitely appreciate that.
And one thing I like to tell people too is, like, this is a game for 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's what 8+ on the box. Like, just treat it like that. Like, it's, you're not winning any cash prizes. Like, like, just be respectful, man. Like, don't be a jackwagon. Like, that's ultimately, like, just be cool. We're all cool with each other. You want to be a jackwagon, go do that somewhere else.
Right. I think I was like 9 or 10 when the game first came out, so that's spot on there.
Yeah, and that's the theory behind why the community is so much better than a lot of these others, is that this was, like, even those early Gen Cons and stuff were father-sons coming a lot, right? It was a lot of families coming together to play this game. I know when I started playing in 2012, it was my first year, and I came with my dad. I know it was Veggie's first year, he came with his dad, and I know it was the Ash's first year, and that was a group of brothers and a cousin coming, it was just like... And we go there and it's like the elders, right? Which is a couple guys, a couple of their friends, and then their dad, who would just come and watch and never played, for like 5 or 6 years. He would always come to Gen Con and never played. And then he started playing. And now he's, having a great time. He still comes every year. And now he plays all the time too. So, that's just the way it is. It's the same, like and a lot of this stuff comes up like once a ScapeCon, right, or once a Gen Con. But I'm just trying to get ahead of the issue and trying to make it so that's consistent, and have what I want the tournament director then to say is, look, this is how Mike has set it up, and if you have an issue with it, you can talk to him later, right? Is to shift the blame back to me, and I'll take the blame for this. So, for example, another thing that comes up like once a ScapeCon consistently, though, it's like once every year, is somebody. Round 1 will have 4 squads of Romans and Marcus, and they'll put all their order markers on Marcus, mistaking the card for the Romans happens every year, where somebody does something. It's very clear they meant to put all their order markers on the Romans and not Marcus, right? They're not just going to use their bonding hero the whole time. They're going to use the Romans. I've decided to, basically, like, the expectation is that you let your opponent change. When it's clear, when it's not angle shooting, it's not like, oh, I roll for initiative and it was a close point in the game where I had Marcus and one Roman up and I want to then change to, because I want initiative, right? I want to get that extra attack. Like, no, obviously we're not allowing that because that's a strategic decision. But when it's very clear on what your intent is, I mean, that's the expectation. And I have no problem with one of my tournament directors stepping in saying, yeah, they get to change, and then afterwards, that's going to be a conversation too between me and that person saying like, hey, like, we really don't do that here. That's just not what we do.
Sure.
Another example is you miss, let's say you attack with somebody and you had height. You roll 2 skulls, they roll 2 shields, right? And then you move on to your next attack on somebody else, completely unrelated, not the same figure, just completely, some other guy. And then you roll that attack, they defend, whatever happens. And you're like, oh, wait, I was supposed to have height over there, Everybody in the community is going to, pretty much everybody in the community, and I'm saying the expectation that should be everyone, is going to say, yeah, go ahead and roll that die to see if that inflicts that wound, right? See if that inflicts a wound to that hero or if they get the kill. Again, it's just like, just be great to each other, right? Just be good to each other, be communicative. A lot of this comes down to clear communication. I always try to say when I'm attacking, like 4v5, or 3v5, or I'm doing, and I'm not asking you to do a ton of work, and I'm not asking, you're not going to catch everything that your opponent is doing. I'm definitely not saying like you should be coaching your opponent like, oh no, don't do that, go do that instead. But it's just like, keep the game moving. I mean, that's the other thing is like if somebody starts moving their knights and they didn't bond yet and then they catch it, well, yeah, you got to let them go back and do it. And now we're wasting time for you to rewind the knight move Gilbert, roll a dispatch. It's like, why didn't you just remind them in the first place? Save us the time. We're on a tight schedule. Keep the game moving. Just be good to each other, right? Like, remembering that you bond is not a skill. That's not like what we're trying to measure here, is how well you're able to remember your triggers. And there are certain communities, especially in card games, that are huge on that. They're like, remembering your triggers is a skill. And it's just like, well, isn't the skill supposed to be in how you play the game, not your mental, capacity to remember, which everyone has different, abilities regarding that? Like, that's just not it, It's just not it, man. We're just not about that. Yeah, that was a lot, I know, but
Okay.
That's, it's rulings and it's policy and guidelines and guidance, for which, all of that I think is valuable in some aspect or another. And I guarantee you, anyone that reads the document will learn something. I learned stuff while creating it, and I already knew, a fair bit about the rules, but it was like, oh, we're getting deep into some of this stuff, right? Yeah, there's a lot of time into it. I definitely recommend, if you have a ruling question, just go there first. It's gonna cover it. That's the bottom line.
Well, thank you, Mike, so much. And again, link in the description below if you're watching this on the podcast, or I'm definitely do a segmented video of this. And check out link description below to find the link and get that. And definitely, hopefully, it's a good change for not just ScapeCon, and those of you who are going to ScapeCon or considering going to ScapeCon for the future. Definitely check it out, or maybe it's something you want to use for your own tournaments or conventions in the future, because I have a feeling that these might sprout up more. So it's definitely a good tool to have. And I'll finish what Justin says in the chat, and I understand this reference because I just watched that movie a few months ago. Be excellent to each other, from Abraham Lincoln. And if you don't understand that pop culture reference, you have a movie to watch. So with that,
one correction to that: be excellent to each other.
Be excellent.
Yo, that needs to be a shirt.
Excellent to each other.
I do like that. I like that.
I would wear
actually...
that shirt so much.
Okay.
Hey, Josiah, the game you're talking about, I think, is Dungeon Command.
So, Josiah, you got another shirt to make then. All right, awesome.
I'm interested. Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to, because usually we look at comments from, and Alex, do you still have a few minutes, or do you need to bow out, sir?
I got a few minutes still.
Okay. So I'm going to keep this short and sweet. we usually go over comments from the last podcast or the last streams. Now we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just gonna get to one. So here, hold on one second, and it's something that's very, very simple. It actually just almost tails into what we were just talking about. So here, just give me 1 second to post this, and this comes from. This comment comes from. Let me post it up here. It comes from Izukiato, I believe. I think that's how I say it. If I butchered it, I apologize. But Heroscape, everyone can be a hero. Yes, exactly. So that's all the comments, and thank you. There were a lot of comments from the last few ToV. I know the reaction stream and the last ToV podcast. So appreciate all those comments from everybody. Keep on talking, and eventually we'll point out and talk about any comments that pop up as much as we can. Although there's a lot more, so it's hard to manage. But with that, how about we give some plugs and sign off here. Alex, I know you don't have much plugs, but you're welcome to sign off and just, I guess, promote Nobleman Nick's channel, because I know that you're on there.
Yeah, most of the time. A lot of the videos he usually posts, usually I'm part of, or some of his other friends. That's usually why he posts a lot, because I have free time from work and he's able to play. We usually get a video about a week or so. I know lately we haven't been doing too many, but you know how life is. But
well, appreciate having you on, Alex, tonight. First time for Alex, and yeah, love having you on.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it.
If you're a history buff, we might actually put you on tab in the future if you're another lore type person. We might want to have you, wait in the wings just in case there's a time when Jeremy can't get on board.
Yeah, I'm definitely more into the lore and history of Heroscape. Well, mostly the lore. That was my big thing since I was a kid, was just like everything all together at once. It's just like you don't see anywhere else.
Heck yeah. That's where it's at.
Awesome, sir. Well, appreciate it. And Jeremy, go ahead and plug your channel and stuff, because I know you're busy.
All right. Yeah. Well, so just great show. Always have a wonderful opportunity to talk with these awesome individuals in the Heroscape community. Of course, just hype building up as August approaches. I think someone said it in chat. What, 10 days? I don't know if it's 10 days, but we have less than a month till official first Heroscape launches. I know I say it's not official, but in the sense of like retail, and we're going to see retail stuff go live. You're going to be able to start playing it. You start seeing it in stores. And then, of course, September 6th, which, if I recall, was the date mentioned in the last Renegade Con, when the first launch tournament is going to start taking place. I am interested and working towards launching that in my area, in the local game store where I'm at. And we'll be doing that. And so if anyone's in the Southern Tennessee area and is interested in acquiring a Shiori miniature, please feel free to stop by the game store. It's called Call to Adventure Games. That's where I'll be running my stuff from. And so it's gonna be my first attempt at a tournament. It's probably gonna be baby's first attempt. So OEAO's great rule list might actually come into. I might actually borrow that. And me and the game store owner are probably gonna look that over, so I can explain to him some of the things we should keep an eye out just in case. I don't think anything's crazy gonna happen. Mainly what I've been doing is teaching people the game in my area, teaching the game store owner how to play it. Anyone that's interested, they kind of like, what's that? I'm like, well, do you have time? We can do, we got an hour. Trying to get people into some quick basic game sessions so I can. And I don't know if I brought it up last time, but when I was in Wisconsin, I did get to play some Heroscape. I taught some of my Final Fantasy 14 mutuals how to play the game, and they are now interested and they actually made me a part of in the Discord that we're in. They made me a channel all to myself for Heroscape announcements. So the game leaves a very good impression to new players even now. So I'm super excited for its launch to come out. Other than that, I've just been working really hard on covering various media outlets. Of course, we have with Heroscape that I've been covering and showcasing. We just recently Final Fantasy 14 just had its recent expansion update. It's called Dawn Trail. So I've been covering that on my channel. So if you wanna check that out, I've been doing that. I'm doing that right now. Just doing as much as that expansion as I can before I I'm trying to avoid spoilers. So I'm like playing as much as I can. I'm like, oh crap, you know, like in between shifts and stuff. But it's been a really good experience so far because as you can see, I just recently put this on. It's getting me in touch with my roots. Things that I've had to
Honduras.
experience throughout my
Honduras.
País de Honduras. It's a like Dawn Trail. Its references to indigenous cultures is really really good. So I'm super excited to kind of just unpack all of it as I go. And yeah, expect to see a lot of that up and coming in the later days, on top of Heroscape and all the other stuff I do. So yeah, really good stuff. I'm just really excited for the game overall. I think this year is going to put some a huge burst of life into the franchise, and then you know it's on us as the vets to kind of just keep this wave forward, moving it forward, and you know give feedback, good constructive feedback to Renegade as things happen, and you know help them with this launch tournament scene as it happens, because I think it has the potential to do some really cool stuff in these game stores and get some more people to join the game overall. So I'm super excited to see how that goes. Yeah, with that, I yield my time.
Thank you, Jeremy. Ken, go and plug what you want to plug, sir.
GameCon's coming up. The one, well, I'm going to say a lot of things, but not right now. But the one thing I'm going to say right now about ScapeCon is, if you come to ScapeCon, please faster than you usually play. That's the one thing I'm going to ask everybody to do is play.
Thank you, sir.
Definitely try to remember that.
Mike, go ahead.
If you want to go to ScapeCon 5, definitely get on the wait list as quick as possible if you have not attended before, because you know, I would expect we're going to sell out again. You know, I mean, it's crazy that we sold out this year, but it is what it is. We've always had very constant growth from ScapeCon to ScapeCon, so you know, it happens. Amazing event. I'm really looking forward to it. You know, obviously, especially now, a lot of time going into a lot of different things regarding it, but just about everything is coming together nicely. A couple outstanding issues that are unfortunately outside of my control that I'm trying to resolve. Myself and Ken and my dad, the organizers, were trying to resolve some of that stuff, but everything within my control is pretty much set. So it's been, you know, it's a lot of work every single year. I always think it's going to be less than the year before, and somehow it's always more. And that's with outsourcing a lot of this stuff to other people now. So, yeah, there's a reason I don't play much once it gets to ScapeCon itself, you know. So you'll see me around there. I'll be, you know, helping run events. I'll be commentating some, and I'll be, you know, around. But, you know, for those who've been at the last couple ScapeCons, you know that I don't really play once I get there because I am burnt out. Big shout out to Josiah for
everything you do,
helping out with. Oh, of course, it's my pleasure, really. Big shout out to Josiah for helping out with streaming this year. Josiah's got a really great setup, and I mean, the stream this year should be like professional level. It's going to be really good, and we've got Big Bullfrog coming out, you know, to commentate. He's the chief commentator all weekend. So other than one event I'm going to do, he's going to be on like all the rest of the time. So it's going to be a blast. So even if you can't attend this year, even if you can't make it, you know, there's going to be a really high quality stream going, you know, for all the championship events. So there's going to be great coverage of the event. It's just going to be a blast. So yeah, ScapeCon, there might be another Casters episode, but I wouldn't expect that. You know, we'll
keep on putting on the pressure.
Ken will
everybody.
keep bothering me.
Yeah, keep on putting on the pressure. All right.
Ken will keep bothering me, but we'll see. We might do one more.
All right. Thank you, Mike. All right, Josiah, go ahead.
Yeah. Just overall, I'm really excited to be going to ScapeCon. I hope to meet, you know, everyone that's going, and you know, feel free to talk to me. I love to add some more friends to my tool belt. Personally, I've been, you know, the reason I look so tired is I've been working pretty hard on some more content. Be expecting some painting tutorials to drop in the next couple of days for some of the AOA master sets. So I've been just getting all those compiled. I'm about 6 terabytes of footage in, and I'm just sorting through all that now for all that. So keep an eye on my channel for that.
6 terabytes.
Yeah, I upgraded to 6K. Unfortunately, it has its pros.
I see.
That's incredible.
I see.
Wow.
So just keep an eye on for that. Recently, I just posted another spotlight, creator spotlight, where I just talked to some really cool content creators in the Heroscape community. Lastly, I did Hex Holla, which is just, it's probably the funniest one I've done yet so far. So definitely recommend checking that out. And I'm going to be trying to do some more live streams and stuff like that. I'm a little swamped right now, personally and externally, but I'm trying to get things knocked out. So just kind of stay tuned, and you know, I'm just excited for what's to come. There's some big things happening for sure.
All right, thank you, Josiah. Yeah, definitely check them out. Link in the description below for everybody. And of course, I'm Ryan, Tales of Valhalla. And well, I mean, you're here. You know what I'm about. But I do want to point out that I do have 2 contests still going. One is leaving a comment on our reaction stream to the last Renegade Con. You comment on that video, you'll be in the running for a map like this one above my head and 2 squads of zombies. So if you leave a comment there is a link in the description below. Or even if you're listening to this via Spotify or whatever, in the description, there'll be a link there too. If you just, I mean, all you gotta do is leave a comment. And then there is also, if you go to the Tales of Valhalla Patreon, there is a contest for at least Agent Skahan. If we get more, and you can sign up for free too. And the Agent Skahan was painted by a Sir Roguescaper here. And if we get enough people, even free coming on tier, if we get enough people, then there could be more prizes awarded too, depending on the amount of people that sign up. So there's still a few weeks left for those contests. Do what you got to do to enter them. And then this Wednesday, I'm going to continue my road to ScapeCon, doing skirmishes to try and get as good as I possibly can get and familiarize myself with armies that I plan to use in ScapeCon to see if I can bump up my 1 win, 5 loss average to maybe like 2 wins, 4 losses, and that might end up being better overall for me this ScapeCon time. So definitely, and the cool thing with this Wednesday, I'm going to be using proxies, but I do have a Death Knight, Evil Raylan, Levy Attack army that I'm going to be planning to use against a Firestorm, and we'll see how that fares this Wednesday. So definitely check that out. Yes, like Josiah, I am pretty busy with things. There's a lot of things in the pipe that hopefully someday will be revealed. But for everybody who is commenting, appreciate all the comments in the chat. Always a lively chat for these streams, and this time has been no exception either. And thank you guys for joining us. Yeah, been a fun stream. You have a purpose in your life. Find it, pursue it, live it, and we'll see all of you next time. Later now. Bye bye. Bye bye.